if you look at the market, there is enormous amount of competition, right? There's a lot of fighting, a lot of discounts, a lot of other things that are happening. How does a brand handle this? How does your brand, the brand that you consult for, how does it fight that? And how much of it is valuable and how much of it is noise?
Um, I'll start with noise. I think.
That's easy, I know.
I hope all of us, what we are talking here, is not coming across as noise, first and foremost.
Correct.
So, our intention is not to be the noise, but our intention is to be the voice, right? And to give you clarity. So, what is noise? I think uh, lack of clarity is noise. So, people just randomly doing something, just look at competition and they'll say, competition is doing something, let me also do whatever the competition is doing, right? There's discounting, for example, is a big noise according to me, because people who don't have clarity on their strategy and all of that is when they start discounting. And if you go to Lulu hypermarket, you will see a lot of brands there who are on discount. I really worry for them, because that's a big trap. And some of the brands who have come to us when we were working also, I said, please don't do that, because you don't even know what trap what you're falling to, right?
Right.
So now flipping that entire thing around, saying that, okay, now when you look at the noise, and enough and more of noise is there, internet is flooded with content today, and AI coming into the mix, it's made it even more worse, right? You don't even know whether which is original, which is duplicate, and where is the noise coming from, right? And on the counter side, when you look at it, what is what is required for the brand to be valuable, right? First point is clarity. Clarity, 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 clarity only builds brands. Correct? If you don't have clarity, your brand will never get built. Like I told you, if you don't have clarity, you cannot brief an advertising agency, right, as to what your brand is all about. So have clarity. Second, consistency. You have to wake up every day dressing up in whatever format which you want to dress up and appear in front of your customer and say, hey, listen, I'm here to solve a problem for you, and this is me. I don't change. I appear in the same avatar every day and I come in front of you and say, here I am, and I will solve this problem. I don't want to solve multiple problems. I'm here to solve only one problem, right? Third component, storytelling. Storytelling from earlier years when we started our business 25 years back, and probably yours too, Pratap, and Lopez too. From the time earlier years, 2 decades back to now, I think the kind of storytelling is changed, right? And for me, authenticity is ruling now. And authentic storytelling, it is all about. There's no more dramatization. There's no more room for dramatization. You be authentic. You be true to who you are, and don't try copying anybody else and stuff like that. So that's one more third component. Fourth component is the moment of truth. When you advertise and the customer comes in front of you, I think that's the moment of truth. And today, with so much of choices, what you were saying, like hyper competition out there, you have only one chance, because there's so much of choices available to you, right? You go to a supermarket, you don't know which soap to choose, which shampoo to choose, or which cornflakes to choose for that particular. Cornflakes is still okay, Kellogg's rules, but everywhere else it's a struggle, right? Last piece, I think it's very, I think as Malayalis, and I'm proud to be one, is the concept of community. I think the brands of tomorrow should really focus on building a community for their brand. And who else and where else can you learn from other than Kerala? Malayali community, Mallu community, amazing, no? You meet another Malayali, you look at it, Malayali ano? Evidna? Then study buddies and you just go on, and this bonding happens left, right. It's a true concept of community which is on display. But I don't know how many brands have picked that up and created a community for their brand, right? So Malayali brands, just look at the Malayali itself. But don't create a Malayali brand because the opportunity is outside. Don't just get stuck here. Like even your brand, don't just get stuck here, because the world is your market now. So build a community which is broader, which appeals to a larger set of people, and then go for it from there on. Yeah, so that's my perspective on how we should be really looking to break through all the noise which is out there. And if you really need to really differentiate, I think you should be looking at it in this particular manner. Start with clarity, end with community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I need to add is I work in Delhi, right? And there was a time when I started my career in Delhi. There was this guy who said, "I'm sorry, I can't work with you. I can't work with a Madrasi." So I looked at him and said, "You see that rectangular thing there? That's called the door. Get your ass out of there." I actually told him that. But and because no one knew Kerala. I mean, Kerala was this place which is south of Bangalore, and nobody knows what was happening there. But today, the whole thing has changed. We are actually seen as the best part of India for people to stay, at least to live, not perhaps to do business because we have a small audience, right? But to stay, to live. Kerala is, I mean, this is our time. So if you're looking at building brands going out of the state, there has never been a better time, right? And especially today, the way world is going. Anyway, Tony, so we have spoken about inconsistency in brands, right? The way it looks. I'm talking about the physical looks. Is it an aesthetic problem or is it a business problem?
I think definitely it's a business problem. Uh, and if it appears in the aesthetics, so we talk about consistency of logo, application of color, this thing. Now that's when and Pratap spoke about somebody changing your red into another red. All those things make a difference. But I think the root cause is because the business is not clear about itself, right? And when it speaks, when it the the clarity of your business, of your of what you are dictates how everything pans out. Everything, right? So, and the visual part is only one component of it. So, when you say branding, people always think branding is logo, but it's is one component. It's an important component, is the face of the brand, but everything before that and everything around that is equally important. And I would say equally important. And when those becomes fractionalized, that time everything breaks, right? And you find inconsistency in everything the brand do. So if it starts speaking to you in one medium, say advertising, and in digital is another
That's
tone of
true.
voice and another trick in the box is opened up and a rabbit is pulled out from there, and in the say a website it is something totally different, and all those things in your service design when when your salesman speaks to your customer, right? Or when there is an emergency and your salesman has to speak at 10 o'clock at night, right? So what's his tone of voice? Right? That's consistency when we speak about consistency. And that's when that breaks, then that's a real break in that sense. And thereby, in places like this, what you land up doing is you land up plowing your brand more and more and more and not getting results. Right? And that's called in normal business parlance is called burn. You put in a lot of money and you're getting no returns out of it, right? And eventually you become, I mean, you die. I mean, technically, in technical terms, yeah. So I think that is where I think we need to be very careful about the attribution of how disparity happens within your brand, right? And sometimes it's is the source. The source is the people who own the brand or the people who run the brand, right? They need to bring clarity to the table. And Pratap spoke about this volume, right, of GE, which is running into, I mean, you need a cart to pull it out. So literally, it all, the volume, what it means SOP in business terms, right? So everything is decided in context of that. Your staff, everybody's trained exactly to speak and behave in that manner, which then attributes to the brand.
Okay, Shalini, here's a question for you. So your brand has been around for a few number of years, correct? And you started with one logo. You started with one logo, right? And now you have another, right? And I'm sure you have traveled. Tell us the story of that. Because as brand owners, or people who drive brands and are behind brands, one would like to know the founder's perspective and the brand owner's perspective of how and why you had to go from point A to point B.
From the founder's perspective, I'll say one more thing, I'll add to it.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Over the last quarter century, I've done two things, only two things. I've raised Mantra, my brand, and I've raised Shreya, my daughter. And both are in their 20s now. And I've realized that my journey as a founder and as a mom were uncannily similar. I say this as answer to your question because my journey as a founder was an intensely personal one. It was almost solitary. How I visualized the brand, what I wanted for it. In fact, my logo is actually Shalini James Mantra.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
it was always meant to be a personal offering, very personal point of view expressed through clothing. So initial years, I had a big part in designing the logo
Okay.
because the vision was mine, how I wanted Mantra to look, how I wanted every touch point, every experience that the customer would experience with us. I designed almost everything. That was me in 2003. When Mantra was about 8 or 9 years old, I decided, earlier what Pratap you said, that, initially you look inward and then there's the outside world looking at you. And the earlier you close that gap, the better for the brand.
That's right. Yeah.
So I started Mantra in a small room in a suburban house in Mamangalam. And in that room, I envisioned the whole brand. And I'll very honestly say that that vision is still with me. That vision hasn't really changed, but I have evolved. And as part of that evolution, how personal this journey was, I knew when to bring in experts. And when Mantra was about 8 or 9, from that same room at Mamangalam, I reached out to Pratap.
Yeah.
And Pratap in Delhi, and I had, heard about the Incredible India campaign and all that, and I said, I want the best to give definition to the soul that I've created, and Pratap and Bang in the Middle reimagined Mantra for me. That was, I think, in 2008.
Yeah.
And that exercise was extremely enlightening for me. It did us a lot of good in the way we were perceived, from being, like said, a regional brand to having a pan-Indian look.
That's right. Yeah.
Which you brought to us. So that exercise, I think, is something that I count as highly valuable in our entire journey. Then again, and that kept us going for a good decade. Then again, when Mantra was about 18, I felt like, coming of age gift to Mantra. I felt I wanted to do that exercise again. And I did that exercise again with another branding consultancy called Hue and Y. And the logo you saw earlier was done by them. Not just the logo. In fact, brand, I even though we inadvertently call a logo a brand, it's far, far, far more than that. The exercise itself of revisiting the original vision board is what you do with a branding professional. Revisiting the strategy, revisiting everything, who you are, what you stand for, who you serve. You have it all documented, like all of them say. So revisiting that is something that a founder should do, ideally every year. And once you've done this rebranding exercise with a branding professional, at least I personally feel you must do it at least once a decade.
Yeah.
And that I've done, and that has really been one of the most fruitful things for the brand, the way it's perceived by the public, and the way I see it as well.
Yeah. So interesting that she said it. I had the opportunity to recently do or overhaul the entire brand image and brand logo and design of, I'm sure you must have heard this brand called Suslon. which is a renewable energy brand, the number one energy brand in the country. And if you notice the last couple of days, you would have seen newspapers with full page ads. So that is my thinking brought to life. But then, huge brand, big brand with global ambition, right? So, Geetika, uh, I've often noticed a lot of Indian entrepreneurs hide behind their brands. Yeah,
Right.
they kind of hide behind their brands and they are reluctant to come out into the light.
Sad but true.
Yeah. What do you have to say to that?
Sad but true. um, you know, so first of all, I completely agree with you on that one, right? That Indian founders per se, like Pratap said, tend to kind of hide behind their own brands and their own companies. But I think it actually goes back hundreds of years, like multiple centuries, because I think as a culture, right, the way that we've been taught in Indian culture is that any kind of self promotion is like a sign of arrogance. Yeah. And obviously, none of us want to come across as arrogant, right? Because that has a very negative connotation. In fact, I would go to the extent to say that uh, m- many of us, founders, business owners, even CXOs working in corporates, you know, the moment the spotlight kind of comes on us, we start to shrink a little bit. There is some level of discomfort which comes in. Now, I'm not saying that we don't want to be in the spotlight. No, of course, it's human nature. Who doesn't crave attention? Everybody, right? Who doesn't crave appreciation? Each one of us. But the moment the focus comes, we start to kind of, that feeling of discomfort starts to creep in. And I think that's a cultural thing which has been kind of, you know like put inside of us from our childhood, that let your work speak for itself. Who's heard of this line? Raise your hands in the audience. Who's heard of this? Let your work speak for itself. Exactly. Now, there is no problem with the work speaking, but how will it always speak for itself? You are the spokesperson. Even a political party has a spokesperson, right? So it is fine to let the work shine in the market, but you have to stand up and represent that work and show your pride, for your work. And I think that is something which founders in general, and in specifically Indian founders, I've seen a lot of them cringe a little bit at the thought of, kind of putting their story out there, being the face of their brand, because they feel that it'll be taken as a sign of arrogance, sign of not being humble enough, which is not the case. Humility is a different concept altogether.
Okay.
And I think that's what.
I want to add to that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you another thing. See, 20 years ago, it was good to be modest, right? But today, if you look at social media
Yeah.
and how the world has changed, you do not have an escape route.
It's
Yeah,
one
you
thing to
have-
be modest, and
yeah.
it's another thing to be absent.
Yeah. I mean, today everybody is showing what they had for lunch, right? I mean, look at the creator economy that we are
Yeah.
part of today. And today, in that sort of a scenario, I don't think the word modesty has to be rephrased. It is something else.
Yeah.
You have to be relevant, alive,
Yes.
right there in your face, kind of a thing, because that is the culture today.
Yes.
When you're talking about influencers, right? You're talking about a whole different kind of thing. You yourself ought to be a big influencer today, right? Driving not just your brand, but trends, right? So the opportunity is right there for you.
Yeah. But having said that, I would put a rider over there. Coming back to what we were also speaking about earlier, noise, right? So the idea of founders, business owners putting themselves out there is not to share what they had for lunch, right? It is not about adding more to the noise. It is just about adding to the messaging,
Correct.
right? And like somebody also mentioned earlier, consistency is messaging. And in fact, I would go one step further and say that not just consistency, but also show what it took to be consistent throughout, to stand up for whatever your message was, right? Because the moment you attach a cost to whatever you stand for, that then becomes very believable, something that inspires trust, and something that people start, resonating with and uh, believing in, right?
Yeah.
So if you say that I had to go through this, it's like, if you uh, have you seen corporate websites? Most corporate websites will have a about us or our story or something like that, and they will have this graph of milestones. 2002 we were born. Yeah, exactly, timeline. Then this happened, then this happened, then that happened. That is not a story. That is not how your brand grew up. So what do we say? Okay, it's nice, very nice picture, but that's just about it. But you've not really said that in 2008 you were almost wiped out. Nobody knows about that. So that is the thing which people also need to, the founders, the business owners, they need to come out and start sharing those kind of real, authentic, which everybody was talking about, messaging, so that their brand then becomes alive. And it's not just data points about how we became successful, right?
I will add one small little story to what she's saying. So when one of my favorite people whom I have followed is Richard Branson, right? Because of his the way he is, right? Very flamboyant, arrogant, all that. So he was launching his cola, soda, called Virgin Cola to the American market. And at that time, obviously, Coke was Coca-Cola was the biggest brand. So you know what he did? So he actually wrote a letter to the CEO of Coca-Cola saying that my name is Richard Branson and I wish to enter the American market with my Coca-Cola, Virgin Cola, which I think will beat yours. So if you want to stop me, here is the thing. I challenge you to a fight, arm wrestling fight. If you can beat me, I will not come into the US. If I beat you, I will come into the US. Now, so that shows the confidence, the arrogance, and the beauty of that brand.
Absolutely.
Right? So it is the founder carrying his chromosomes into the brand itself. And you feel wonderful, right? Somebody actually putting yourself on the line. And it's like bringing down to street level fights.